Hello and welcome. I'm engagement editor John A. Torres with Florida Today, a part of the USA Today network. And I'm pleased to welcome someone that I've known for many years from his days at the Florida House and the Florida Senate, and also teaching at Eastern Florida State College, what it was known as Brevard Community College, newly elected and newly sworn in, Congressman Mike Haridopolos. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Great to see you, John. Thanks for the opportunity to be on today.
Of course, thanks. Now, before we get started, Congressman, I'd like to apologize for my appearance. I don't normally have the hobo look, but I'm a superstitious sports fan, and my son and I have been diehard Washington, like football team fans, whatever you want to call them, the Washington Commanders now for as long as I can remember. And so we are on a great run. Obviously, the team is playing in the NFC Championship. We're not shaving until it's over. So I apologize for the appearance. I wanted to look nice for you, but there you go.
If the Arkansas Razorbacks ever become competitive again, I might do the same. So whatever it takes.
That being said, Congressman, how's it going so far in Washington?
Well, it has been a whirlwind, to say the least. First of all, we're so grateful for the opportunity to serve a community that I've lived in for over 35 years in the United States Congress. It's a very similar area that I served, of course, in the state Senate as well, ultimately as the president of the Senate. We have some challenging times here in Washington, D.C. with a variety of issues, whether it be, of course, foreign policy debacles over the last 4 years, including Afghanistan, Israel, Taiwan, Ukraine, you name it. And of course, also the ongoing budget deficits. But we're here to get things done. And I'm really optimistic that we can turn the corner here because people have been hurting the last 4 years, especially with high prices, whether it be the grocery store, the restaurant, let alone housing prices. So we're excited to get to work, but we know these are challenging times. And I would just say this, John, thank you for allowing me to be on today, because the best thing we can ever do is to be connected with our community, hear their concerns, their suggestions and ideas, because they're very much needed here in Washington, D.C.
Well, and I appreciate your time as well, Congressman, and you've always made yourself available to Florida Today, and we certainly appreciate that. If you had to pick one or two goals that you'd like to see done this year, or like you'd be part of accomplishing, what would those be?
Well, I think the first goal that everyone's talking about, and it's been for too long now, for the last 4 years, is that clearly we have a border crisis. I think everyone, both Republicans and Democrats, have finally recognized that if we don't secure our border, we're going to have continued problems. And it's not just the obvious where the costs that are incurred when people come across, it's the more devious, and that's the violent actions that have taken place throughout our country. You've read about would it be Lake and Riley or other people murdered by people who simply should not be here, and also the deadly epidemic that is the fentanyl crisis. You and I have covered for years, of course, the oxycodone issue. Going back about 10 years ago, we aggressively went after it and really turned that around. The same thing is happening right now at our border. China is producing this fentanyl. The drug cartels are allowing it to get into the United States, and it's killing tens of thousands of Americans a year. And so I'm so glad to see that President Trump has been aggressive in not only closing the border, but also going after those violent offenders who have caused havoc in our community. And I'm glad to see it's no longer tolerated. So that's kind of our first goal. And my second goal, of course, and we'll get into the specifics if you like, is the issue of just rising prices. I mentioned it earlier. When you go to a restaurant or you go to the grocery store, you have been feeling the pinch anywhere between 30 and 50% in some restaurants. And that's really, really challenging. And we already know, of course, the gas prices that were up as well. And so if we can bring down the inflation, that's where people are probably feeling it the most. And so we think we can do it by two things. One, of course, is increase energy production so the overall gas prices go down. And when gas prices go on, of course, the travel costs to your grocery store, your restaurant go down, and those can be passed along. And the second is the government simply is spending too much money. And that's an inflationary pressure I think every economist recognizes. And so those are my top two goals nationally: border and energy and overall cost of living. And if we can handle those two, I feel like we're making some decent progress.
About the border, Mike, Congressman Haridopolos, I have been hearing lots of things already taking place, land, sea, and air operations. Are you able to speak at all about what's going on?
Well, I think you're seeing it now in the news. I mean, some of these people were protected despite being violent criminals by sanctuary cities, and it's simply wrong. You're undercutting the rule of law. and you're actually allowing these people to perpetrate massive crimes, or at least in most cases, violent crimes against American citizens or other immigrants. These people are bad people. They should never have been here, and they have caused havoc, and they need to be removed from our country. It's that plain and simple. Because not only are you creating all these problems, but you're also denying people who could actually contribute to our society. I believe in legal immigration, people who have skills that can help our economy, people who will pay their taxes. What we're seeing is too many people who are illegal without skills. They're preying on either individuals through crime, or they're taking advantage of our generous social welfare system, like we've seen recently in Florida, where the ACA, which is basically the agencies that oversees our hospitals, they said that last year alone, over $500 million in increased medical costs at our hospital system because of illegal immigrants in our own state. And so there is a cost, not only financially, but also, of course, with violent crime. I think by President Trump being aggressive on this issue, arresting these people, deporting many of them in most cases, what you're doing is not only getting rid of some bad people, but it will discourage others from ever making that trek across the United States, so that we can get our country and our border under control once again.
Great, Mike. Thank you very much. Congressman, you replaced longtime Congressman Bill Posey. I'd like you to tell our viewers what we can expect from you. How are you similar from Congressman Posey, or are you vastly different from his approach and in policy and style and all that?
Well, first, I think anyone who studies Bill Posey's legislative career, whether it be in the state legislature, of course, here in Congress, know that he was very effective for our community. We are both proud conservatives. We're people who believe in less government, less taxes, and more freedom, proud supporters of the Second Amendment, but also very sensitive to our local issues, that meaning the space industry. We know how vitally important it is, and it's so exciting to see that industry taking off. And I think Bill Posey had a big role to play in that. Second, I would talk about the sense that he was also very much involved with our river system. The Indian River Lagoon is vital to all of us. I happen to live on the river. We've seen some improvements there. I know that we need to make more of those. I'll be a proud member of the Estuary Caucus, which the congressman created, along with some members, in this case, a Democrat from Washington State. These are bipartisan issues we should come together on, and both improving the river system and our space system is great for our community and our overall economy. And so we're very similar in that regard. I think the only difference it might be, as Bill might say, we have a little bit different hairstyles. It's been kind of had some fun with. But more importantly, I think it's a continuation of the Posey ideals. I think the other difference might be, as you know, I came from a leadership position in the state Senate, being the presiding officer or president of the Senate. And so I think you might see me take a little bit more active roles in the national campaigns, as well as, of course, moving up the leadership ladder here in Washington. I've already been blessed with the opportunity to serve as what's called the whip of the Financial Services Committee, a committee that the congressman served on for many years. And so I'm going to try to take maybe a little bit more aggressive areas there. But I think you and I both know, John, that Bill Posey was very effective. And I know that it was a challenging decision for him to leave Congress, and I'll do my best to fill his big shoes.
And with no disrespect intended to Congressman Posey, and regardless of whether you're right or left, I think we have to agree that your hair is a lot better than his. So
well, that's something Bill liked to say with some fun. But as I say, I'm just glad it's still here. I'm very fortunate.
Congressman, obviously here on the Space Coast, we rely on a robust space industry to maintain our economic health. President Trump announced the goal of trying to get to Mars, while NASA's working on returning to the moon with Artemis missions. Here on the Space Coast, we have launches every 2 or 3 days. It's amazing. What would you like to see happen with our space program?
Well, first of all, I think we should all be incredibly excited what's happened over the last 12 years. When I was leaving the legislature, a lot of people thought that it might be this end of the space industry here in Brevard County. My last moves as president of the Senate was to incentivize private or commercial space ventures, to make sure that Space Florida and other programs were fully funded, helping our local EDC get those seed dollars that were necessary. And I'm so excited that SpaceX and now Blue Origin are finding success in Brevard County. It's a true accomplishment, and it means that our sons and daughters who attend our local schools, getting those STEM degrees here locally, science, technology, engineering, and math, they're going to have not just a job, but a career where they want to live. As you and I both have the blessing, we can live anywhere in the world, and we choose to live here in Brevard County. And I'm excited about these new opportunities. My maiden speech, in fact, as you, I think, put out on Florida Today website, actually showed my commitment to the space industry, both commercial and with NASA. And I think that our best days are still ahead. And it's not just a commercial or business venture. This is an important military component. As you and I both know, John, having the ultimate high ground is key in any military endeavor, and space is no exception. That is how we keep our GPS coordinates, so our men and women in military, including my own son in the Air Force, are in the right position, God forbid, should war or other violent actions take place. And so we're fully committed to it. The billions that are being invested say a lot about our community and where space is going. And never forget, it was Donald Trump who created the Space Force. And of course, we have the Space Force right here at what is now known as Patrick Air Force Base.
I have to say, I love driving by that sign, and I always yell out "Space Force" as I'm driving by. But staying on space for a moment, Congressman, I've been reading a lot about China and its ramping up its own space program, obviously, but the fact that they have a lot of anti-satellite weaponry available to them. How important is it to try to protect our assets in space from
vital,
a
John.
hostile country?
First of all, I'm so glad you asked that question. We are in a de facto Cold War with China right now. As you know, just a few years ago, they actually collided from satellites up in space to see what the debris effect might be. And they're working with different type of propulsion systems and laser systems to try to get the upper hand over the United States. The good news is that the last few years is that we have actually exceeded the number of launches that China has. China over the last few years. A few years ago, they actually had more launches than we did. As you know, last year, almost 100 launches right here in Brevard. And so we are moving forward. We are beating them technologically right now, but it's all the more reason why we need to stay vigilant. We can't just be space strong. We have to be space dominant. And when you have a strong United States of America, the world is a safer place. We are a committed democracy. We believe in respecting other nations' territorial rights and respect them when they choose to act peacefully. The Chinese, let's never forget, they are a communist party. These folks are a communist dictatorship at this point, and they don't have the respect for the rule of law. And if they ultimately become the ultimate superpower, unlike the United States, I would not be surprised if they make even more territorial ambitions in order to grow communism around the world. And so I remain 100% committed to our space industry for both commercial and military needs. And what we need to do is, in a recent editorial I put out, I think National Fox News actually covered it very well. It talks about how we must make sure those launch licenses that have been denied recently by the FAA are actually okayed, and that we can fly those launches, whether it be here at Kennedy Space Center, or if we need to go to different parts of the world or put up heavier satellites sometimes out at Vandenberg. We need to be aggressive here. This is about winning the war or Cold War with China and making sure they do not have space supremacy, because if they do, it will radically change the dynamics of world power.
Congressman, Florida's 8th Congressional District is pretty big. It covers all of Brevard County, some Indian River County, and a sliver of Orange County. You've got some old Florida there. You have high tech, you have space, you've got rich and poor. What are some of the challenges of trying to meet the needs of the people in your district?
Well, they are challenges, and you've described it well. I mean, it's, as we all know, Brevard County is a very long county. It's one that's even diverse within its own right. When you talk about the Space Center up to the north, of course, the military companies like L3 Harris, Northrop, GE, others down in the central part of the county. We need to, really keep our eye on it. And then you have a lot of the ag down in Indian River County. You have a unique population there that is very wealthy on the coast and more rural, of course, as you move inland. Fortunately, I have represented this area previously in the state Senate. I know it well. We make sure that we keep our ear to the ground. And as you were kind enough to mention, whenever you reach out to our office, we're always responsive, making sure we update people what's going on and how valuable it is for them to reach out to us and give us their suggestions or how our offices can help. I think that it's vital that we use this new technology, as I'm spending more and more time in Washington to communicate with the people who have been giving me this honor to represent them in Congress. And I would just add that, last year they only had 26 weeks up in Washington, D.C. Right now we're scheduled to have at least 34 weeks in Washington, D.C. And so that's why I'm really grateful for this opportunity to communicate directly with you, take your questions, because everyone deserves to know what their congressman is doing for them and how he or she will ultimately vote on how we improve our nation. And so if you don't mind, I'd love to have a regular dialogue like this, because we'll be spending so much time in Washington working on first these initial bills to protect our border, budget reconciliation, and then as we move down through the years, making sure that whether it be space or the estuary programs are handled in an efficient and smart manner.
Well, I know it's adding work to our great producer, Rob Landers, here in the studio, but we would love to have this dialogue with you on a regular basis. That's fantastic.
That would be great. And what we'll always do, again, as much as you want to share with it, is share our things that are happening here. And again, this is a two-way conversation. We'd be happy to share kind of weekly updates with you. We'll always share, of course, our floor speeches and what we're talking about. And if you have some suggestions, remember, we got the great news in learning about some of these things from you. We're so excited about the Cocoa football team and some of the other great news, because too often in the news today in general, you hear about bad news. Let's hear about some of the successes that are happening in our home community, and you guys play a vital role in that.
And your press people were able to get me that information about your speech, about Cocoa football, and I got it to our sports editor, Tim Walters, and he wrote something up right away. So that it was fantastic. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, that would be, and like I said, if you want me to put out a monthly editorial or weekly or whatever y'all want, you guys are always fair with me. Whatever questions you have, I'll always answer, because people deserve to know. It's the reason why we fight the communist Chinese. They don't have that same opportunity. You and I do. And you've always been fair. And I love the coverage you've done in the past, now whether it be on taking on the opioid crisis or when we worked on the issue about the Innocence Commission together. This being an elected official has a lot of responsibility. And one of those is to make sure that we serve justice. And I love how you guys are aggressive on some of those issues that are so vital in our growing community.
Well, thank you, sir. I really appreciate that, honestly. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I'm not sure a lot of our viewers or our readers know that you were instrumental in trying to get compensation for Wilton Dedge and William Dillon, because they were wrongfully incarcerated for over 20 years each, but they each had a violation or something in their past, minor thing that it prohibited them from getting the normal compensation and you wrote bills for them, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, if you're wrongfully convicted, I couldn't imagine, spending one night in prison, let alone over 20 years, which both those people did for crimes they did not commit. I mean, the reason I'm so tough on crime is because I believe that is the fair and not only just system which we have, but when you make mistakes as a government, you need to own those mistakes. And in that case, when I heard about the Wilton Dedge case first and later William Dillon, I really felt like it was the right thing to do. We're a tough on crime state, and I think it's yielded us a lot of success. But when we make a mistake, we need to compensate these people for the horrific time they have to spend in prison for a crime they did not commit. And that's what the scales of justice are all about. And I'm glad we worked on that together, and you all gave it the coverage it deserved. And I think Florida is a compassionate state when it needs to be, and a tough state like it should be when people commit violent crimes along that line.
Exactly. Congressman, President Trump's cabinet has a very Florida flavor with Marco Rubio and Pam Bondi, and of course, Brevard's own Dr. Dave Weldon, a former congressman himself. What do you make of this Florida connection? Is it cool seeing some of the, of these faces up there in Washington?
Well, I couldn't be happier. All the names you mentioned, I know very, very well for a long time. And let's not forget, Susie Wiles is the chief of staff of the president of the United States. And let's not forget, Donald Trump is actually a Florida resident. I love it. James Blair is his #2 guy, who I've known forever. He's a fantastic guy who's, I believe, in charge of the congressional interactions, which I deal with all the time. So I like to say, make America Florida is a great thing. And we're really excited about what's happening. And remember, Florida is the place to be. This is where businesses are moving to. You see this new, what they call the crypto economy, is moving towards Miami because they know that that's a more dynamic area in which to operate. And one of the reasons why our housing prices have gone up, of course, the unenviable situation of inflation and interest rates, but also because people want to live here. They're fleeing big tax states like California, Illinois, and New York. They're coming to Florida for opportunity, sunshine, and no state income tax. And so if more we can make Washington, D.C. and our national politics like Florida, I think it's better off. And I'm really optimistic that we can turn the corner here. I mean, life is about opportunity. And I feel like over the last 4 years, there's been a kind of a two-tiered justice system, and let alone the idea that the cost of government has just risen way too high, which depletes an individual's ability to pay for things that they want to spend their hard-earned money for, whether it be for fun, luxury, or just basic necessities.
Congressman, I'd like to leave you with the last word here. What would you like to say to those who voted for you and to those who didn't, perhaps?
Well, first of all, again, it's an incredible opportunity, and just to serve the people of District 8, which includes Brevard, Indian River, and Orange County. And the best thing, as we started our conversation, John, is we're here. Send us your suggestions, your ideas. We're back in the district as much as we can, and we're trying to listen to people about what's really going on in the economy. As you know, Washington, D.C. can be a bubble. So never hesitate to just visit our website, contact our office, whether it be in Viera or here in Washington, D.C. We want to be at resource for you. It could be something like you need to make sure your Social Security benefits are taken care of. It could be that you have a problem with your passport. It could be that you have a military issue that you've been dealing with as far as being a vet at the VA. So it's a variety of issues we can take on and try to help. It could be as simple as flying the flag over the Capitol and honoring your name. And finally, if you come to Washington, D.C., we got amazing staff here. They'll give you a firsthand look at the Capitol. And I'll tell you this, John, as a former history teacher, when I do get some free time, it's not often, but when I do, I love to just walk around the Capitol and take in the historic locations where America was built. And I never forget that we are standing on shoulders of giants, people who have sacrificed their life, liberty, and property so that we might enjoy these freedoms. And so never hesitate to contact us. And we'd love to see you in Washington or when we're back in the district.
Well, I actually may take you up on that offer. I haven't been to Washington in quite a long time, and I would love a tour and all that. But we just want to thank you for your time today, Congressman Mike Haridopolos, and your generous time, and just making yourself available to us on a regular basis. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm John Torres, Florida Today's opinion page editor, and we are part of the USA Today Network. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.